All right, welcome everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to today's Hopkins Hour online session. So today we're talking about pain, a complex protection system. So this is a study that we did here at the Metro South Pain Rehabilitation Centre. And we're going to sort of have a little bit of a background about pain programs and things like that as well. So I'm hoping it'll be a really interesting hour with lots of chances to ask questions and things like that as well. I would like to just have a brief overview, give you guys a brief overview of who's presenting today. I'm going to be chairing the session, and I'm not going to be sort of doing much in the way of content, but I'm the director of the Pain Rehabilitation Centre at Metro South. So we take care of chronic pain for the south side of Brisbane and West Moreton as well, the Bay Islands, all the way down to Bow Desert, and all the way up to the range up to Toowoomba. So got a catchment of about 1.5 million people. So lots of people with chronic pain, and considering about 20% of the population has chronic pain, it's a big issue for our catchment. So we've got Michael Dean, who's our team leader. He's an occupational therapist. He's been working in pain for about 25 odd years now and has had roles in non-government organisations to do with pain. He's done pain research. He's very experienced in the area. We've got Kelly Walsh, who was the principal investigator on the project that we're discussing today. She's a pain specialist physiotherapist and one of our senior physiotherapists here at the Pain Rehabilitation Centre. And she's put some amazing effort into this project. And we've got our lovely Lizzie Dite as well, who was one of the participants on the project and has been invaluable in terms of providing feedback and direction from a consumer perspective. So we've got a few different people to hear from. I would like to do a few little housekeeping bits and pieces. So there's a bit about internet connections. So sometimes these are unstable and they can vary. So if you experience technical issues, please put a question in the chat via the toolbar at the top of your screen, and one of our events team will do their best to assist you. And if needed, you can leave the Teams event platform at any time and return to it without losing your place. You can also turn on captions via your Teams meeting settings by clicking on the 3 dots on your toolbar and then selecting language and speech and live captions. And the chat function. So please use the chat function to put in any questions. So we want quite a few questions as we go along. So if something comes to mind and you're thinking, I wish they told us something more about this, please put it in the chat so that we can talk about it in the last sort of 10 or 15 minutes that we've got at the end of the hour. We'll try and get to all of the questions, but if we don't quite get to all of the questions, then we'll answer them offline and post the results. Right. I'd like to give a brief acknowledgement of the country that we're meeting on. We're here in Woolloongabba, which is in Meanjin, Brisbane, and this land has been traditionally cared for over millennia by the Jagera and Turrbal peoples. We pay respect to elders and their wisdom and culture, past and present. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded and that this was always and always will be Aboriginal land. Through collaborative intent, we seek to create the best outcomes possible for First Nations people and all Australians. And we also acknowledge the widely varied and deeply experienced cultural backgrounds that are brought from all around the world to this meeting. And we pay respect to these traditions in recognition of the wealth that they bring to our community. So welcome everybody. So the first person who's going to be talking is Mr. Michael Dean, our occupational therapist and allied health team leader, and he's going to talk a little bit about pain programs, pain therapy programs, and a little bit about their history and what they are, and also a little bit about why we did this project and why we thought that this project was so important to do. So I'll hand over to Michael. He's just in the background of the blur here.
I'm out of the blur. Okie dokie. So thanks, Nick. As per our the title of our presentation, pain's really complex. So you're not going to be able to see all of the words on the screen in this diagram, but this is from some research that was led by one of the researchers, back pain researchers here in Brisbane. And it's a meta model representing expert knowledge of low back pain. So all of these bits in the middle here are all important things to know about someone who might be experiencing back pain. And the categories that's in terms of behavioural lifestyle things, comorbidities, sort of your body's nociceptive detection network, social factors, contextual factors, what's actually going on structurally, biomechanical sort of factors, what's happening within the person, and in terms of psychological factors, and then what's actually going on if there's any injury there as well. So what's really interesting about this is there's lots of dots on this page. There's lots of things to consider, but all of these dots then have interconnections. So I guess just in terms of complexity, there's a lot to think about when we're sort of helping people to manage pain. So in terms of how we go about managing pain, it's very well acknowledged now in our field that, because of the complexity, because of all these bits, we really need to attack this from a lot of different angles. And we've known this for a long time. So the first multidisciplinary pain clinic was established in the US at the University of Washington back in 1960. And then the first clinic in Queensland was developed at the Royal Brisbane Hospital by Prof. Tess Cremon back in 1967. Understanding is that the Royal Brisbane was the second multidisciplinary pain centre to be established in Australia, and is currently the longest sort of ongoing service. So it's been around for a while, and an amazing amount of expertise over the river there. In terms of our service, we've been around since 2011. So I was involved in setting up our service back in the day. And we really have established our service very much based on those multidisciplinary principles, and very much on the idea that it's important to help people to address as many of these concerns and factors that are impacting on their pain as possible. And one of the ways we do that is through pain management programs. So what's a pain management program? Typically, these are presented, and these are sort of the gold standard, is that they would be in some kind of group format. So building on some of those social aspects of pain and participants' abilities to learn off each other. So usually done in a group. These days, most of these programs are done as outpatient. So back in the day, there were lots of inpatient programs, so intensive inpatient programs. These days, most of these come in for a period of time, and the intensities vary. So New South Wales have done some work in the last few years looking at different intensities of programs. So low intensity program, which is what Kelly's going to have a chat about, medium intensity, and some of these programs are up to 120 hours over a few weeks. So some every day, people coming in every day for sessions, and some sort of more spread out over time. They're usually therapist-led. So most programs would have a physiotherapist and a psychologist leading them. All of the programs in Queensland also have an OT. Some are lucky to have a pharmacist and a social worker as well. But certainly the physio and psych leads are very common within the area. And it's really about addressing a couple of things. So first is around helping people to understand what's going on in their bodies and understand that these multifactorial nature of pain through some kind of education-based intervention. And then it's also about developing skills. So, when you have flare-ups, when things come up, how do you manage that in terms of self-managing and rehabilitating into the future? And the evidence for these programs, pain programs in general, is pretty good. So, Cochrane reviews are sort of saying that multidisciplinary pain rehab is fairly effective in terms of efficacy. And a lot of the research sort of shows that patient experience and satisfaction with these programs is fairly high. So what are the goals of these programs? So this, again, developed by our colleagues down in New South Wales. But the goals tend to be around, so that educational aspect, understanding chronic pain and its effects, and understanding that you're not alone in that experience of experiencing these sort of distressing sensations. To improve level of physical function and promote return to daily living tasks. There's a lot of functional loss associated with pain. So how can we help people to do more? To modify perceived level of pain, disability and suffering, and really look at those coping strategies to manage with those things as well. Very much about these programs are how do we provide an intervention such that we can set people up to move into the future with the knowledge and the skills whereby they might be able to continue this into the future. And then looking at healthcare utilisation as well. And very much also, as I said, one of the bigger focus in more recent years has been around how do we help people to maintain this into the future. It's great if you're sort of getting outcomes pre and post a program, but really the proof is in the pudding when we're sort of getting these longer term outcomes. So common features are that they're usually timetabled and with specific content done each week, and that's often provided through a patient manual. It's very much tailored education about pain, so understanding the difference between acute and chronic pain, contributing mechanisms, what sort of treatment people might be having, the different types of pain in terms of nociplastic, neuropathic, nociceptive pain. That skills training focus, so it might be an exercise component, it might be an activity pacing component, a relaxation or a mindfulness component as well that can then be taken home as homework and practiced into the community. And certainly they're sort of set up to not be didactic sessions. So the program that we run here, sometimes in terms of that timetabling structure, that might change quite a lot depending on who's in the room on the day and what comes out of those interactive discussions, that very engaged sort of context. Of course, then sort of leading into, as I sort of mentioned before, how do we sort of continue to work on goals? Understanding more now as well in terms of preparing people to participate in the program, so working them up to the point where now's a great time, now's the best time that they can sort of get the most out of the program. And then looking at that longer term gain as well. So just in terms of looking at this complexity sort of diagram, we're looking at things like the program might have an acceptance and commitment therapy or cognitive behavioral sort of therapy type component. Certainly lots around advice. There might be things around movement, graded activity, ergonomic interventions. As I said, most of these are multidisciplinary input. Some skills training in mindfulness or relaxation and that motivational interviewing sort of focus as well. So in terms of the study that we've been doing here and the study that Kelly has led and is going to talk about now, it was looking at our Engage group. So Engage was a 5-weekly session program. So patients come in for 2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours. And 2 hours over 5 weeks. And then there's a follow-up phone call at the 6-week mark, just to check how things are going. And again, looking at that sort of implementation into the future. Our program is again, our physios and psychs sort of lead the program with myself as the OT providing some input more towards the end, again, looking at that transitioning out of the program. And very much a focus on understanding pain, understanding the complexities of pain through pain science education. Our program is very ACT-based, acceptance and commitment therapy-based, and looking at how we grade up people activities, manage flare-ups, which can be really unpredictable and distressing, and then looking at goals and moving towards the future. So what we were really wanting to look at is when patients come to our program, what did they learn and what's different as a result of that? So the aims of the project were to explore the knowledge that people acquire during and retain following their participation in the group, and then to explore the experiences and their self-reported changes in their beliefs and behaviour, both while they're attending the group, as well as sort of in the longer run. And then, the whole idea of this is how do we translate this into changes in what we do clinically with the patients who are coming into the clinic. So the secondary aim there to use information collected to develop a more person-centred pain management program so that we can help us, but also help other clinics in terms of distribution of this knowledge into the future. I'm just going to hand over to Kelly now.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. So my name is Kelly and I'm one of the physios at the pain clinic who, as Michael said, I sort of led this project, but it very much was a team effort. I do want to acknowledge that as well. That's been a lot of work for all of us, but really helpful and really insightful for us as well. So this research project stems from a clinical question. We run Engage now for a number of years in different iterations. And often we see people after the program and they were coming back in, and we're often kind of reteaching concepts that we had gone through during the group program. So whilst people are telling us that they benefit and things have changed, in reteaching them, we're sort of wondering, well, what are people actually learning from this program? You know, we base it on what the evidence tells us that we should be including, so pain science education, psychological skills and strategies. But what are people actually taking? And what we wanted to do with that is then make it more person-centered, so that our program is really tailored to our patient cohort. Michael's already talked about the aims there, and we've got like the diagram of how we did that. Our method was quite different to what else is out there. So some of the qualitative studies out there, they're using post-program feedback, so interviews or sort of written responses after completion of a program, so people's reflections on that. What we did is we actually did a pre-program interview, so about 2 weeks prior to starting the program, where we explored with people, or our research assistant Alex did, what's going on for them, what's their understanding of their pain, what sort of things are they currently doing, so what are their current behaviours, and what are their goals. And then we tracked them so in a focus group after each of the engaged sessions. And then we did a post-program interview about 6 weeks after completion. And really that kind of reflected the pre-interview questions as well. So we kind of thought to really establish what are people learning and how are their behaviours changing, we need to have a baseline, and that's what that pre-interview was about as well there. So I'm going to talk today about the themes that we've generated from this, and really this is telling a story. It's telling a story from people coming in to engage and really being stuck in their lives, to how people start to, I guess, get some movement. And we called it beginning to become unstuck. So people are starting to get some movement, but then what does that look like moving into the future there as well? So our first theme generated was the biggest learning across the board for all participants was that I'm not the only one stuck in painland. The pre-interviews really established this for us. People prior to coming to engage felt really alone and really isolated in their pain experience, and that pain had really taken away their life, you know. So there was a loss of self, there was a loss of who people were going to be and what they wanted from life there. So these quotes sort of reflect that. So there was that big change in people's lives, and often people's lives had reduced quite a lot. So they weren't engaging in activities, they weren't engaging socially like they previously did. Some people sort of actively had cut themselves off from other people. So they didn't want to have to explain their pain, and that others didn't understand. The lack of understanding was quite prevalent through the data as well. And that lack of understanding or difficulty, I guess, was through loved ones not really getting what was going on for the person, but also it extended to health professionals they've seen as well. And that, again, sort of perpetuated those feelings of isolation and loneliness there too. So what we saw, you know, during the focus groups is people were getting a connection with others, experiencing persistent pain. And then really that was really reflected in the post program interviews, and again across the board. So even for people that didn't really feel that they learned anything from the program, and that was just 2 participants, they still learnt that they weren't alone. I really love this quote there. It literally has someone, it kind of made me feel like I was less like the only one stuck out there in painland. The thing is with this connection, the group connection that did form throughout these the engaged group, is that participants were really learning off each other. So they were learning off peers with telling their shared experiences and what they tried and what they hadn't tried. And I think that also gives value when someone else you're talking to has gone through something similar, or in some way they relate, and they can relate to how your life has changed and the impact that pain has had on your life. And yet they're seeing that so-and-so is doing it this way, or they're doing it differently. That was actually a bit of a launching pad for people to give things a go. So that group connection was really important. Importantly, with this theme as well, is that helping people not feel alone, the peers were paramount, but so were the clinicians, and people really felt, that there's clinicians here that are understanding and they're getting some validation for what's going on in their pain experience. And this is really in contrast to their pre-group experiences, where often they were quite negative healthcare experiences. And so now they're coming in and they're getting listened to and they're feeling valued. Quite a few did also comment on sort of just having a non-judgmental environment where they were welcome to share what was going on for them was really important in helping them feel less lonely and less isolated in their pain experience. The second theme generated was gaining autonomy for living with my pain. And really importantly here, it's about living with your pain. Everyone's pain is different. It's a unique and individual experience. And the way that people approach their pain really needs to suit their own life and what's going on for them as well here. So this incorporated, Engage, we teach quite a lot of skills and strategies for living with pain. So some of these might be things like pacing, activity pacing, or graded activity increases and what that might look like. Do quite a lot of psychological skills. And really interestingly, despite, pain being seen as a biopsychosocial phenomenon, it's really interesting that quite a lot of the participants hadn't ever had any psychological strategies or skills for their pain experience and how to cope with their pain. So that was quite new for a lot of people, and they really found that beneficial as well. One of the changes, and this is one of the changes, I guess, in coming to a pain clinic as well, is we don't take a pain alleviation focus. So we're not focused on getting rid of your pain. It's about how do we help you live a fuller life, even though you've got pain. And for a lot of people, just that turning around of the approach that was taken was really helpful, or it kind of led to some changes. And obviously there's a degree of sort of acceptance that has to come with that as well, that I'm going to accept feeling this pain and still doing. And that can be really hard. So we're really place a lot of importance on the importance of timing in someone's pain journey when they're going through these too. And then we've got changing your relationship with your pain. And really with this, it's about people becoming more, I guess, gaining that more autonomy, where they do feel like, you know what, I can make choices in how I'm approaching my life with my pain. So rather than pain choosing for me, I can choose what I'm going to do or how I'm going to approach it. And so we've got a couple of quotes here. And one's talking about, just that exactly, that I can actually have a say in how I approach things in different ways. And this really removes it from what we saw at the start with the pre-interviews, where pain was controlling their life. And often had taken everything away, to actually I can choose and I can have some say in how I'm going to approach my life with pain. I really love this because I think the thing is, there's this quote about that it's a using knowledge. It's how to use this information and implement it into my day-to-day rather than just the head knowledge. There's lots of resources. There's some fabulous resources out there in regards to how to live well with pain and how to sort of cope with pain. And we do provide these to patients as well. And what seemed to be different was that in the group, people are learning how to implement these into their day-to-day and problem solving this as the groups go on. So if you learn a strategy in week 1 and you gave it a go and you're coming back and you're talking to other people about it and they're saying, what about this way? What about that? So that implementation and actually getting supported in how to implement these strategies into life seem to be quite important for people, and something different than just reading or watching resources as well. And the last quote here, and this was reflected by a few people, is like, it was actually about my life and fulfilling my time. So again, rather than that pain alleviation focus, it's about, well, how can I still live a full life or a fuller life even though the pain is there? And one chap in particular, really acknowledged that I used to just avoid everything and now I'm living my life with pain, and that's a lot easier to cope with. So this seemed to be a really key turning point for people kind of to re-engage in things, which brings us to our next theme actually, which is I can and I want to re-engage with the world beyond painland. So again, at the start, people were actually quite stuck. And when Alex would ask them the question about what are you hoping to do after engage, I think most people didn't have any specific goals. They couldn't think beyond, one chap, I couldn't think beyond Wednesday. One said, I don't set goals anymore because I never achieved them. And so there was really that sense of, I actually can't think about the future. I can't think about what else I might want to add into my life. What we saw during the process of engage was that people began to start to re-engage in some activities that maybe they weren't doing previously or that they'd lost, and that they were starting to think ahead as well. So during engage, people, we actually teach life, I call it a whole person approach. You're a person, you're not your pain, you're a person. So we're looking at what can you add into your life to help you feel more fulfilled and things like that. And so we saw that people started to get into the veggie garden. One person talked about connecting with nature because I realized that helps to calm my nervous system down more. A couple started going to events more. So things that they would previously have said no to, they actually had the strategies of how could I approach that, and how could I, and that's one of the things with that using knowledge and putting it into place is that people might come back saying, I want to go to the footy. And we would go through, okay, well, this is how, can you catch a train? Can you drive? Whatever it might be, and how that might look like. But also, if it's something that might flare you up, how do we then manage the flare up too? And so I think it's people felt more confident, or some of them felt more confident to actually go and do some things, knowing that they could then manage that flare up better as well, and just plan around it. People talked about, a couple of participants in their post group interviews talked about things that they wanted to add in. So this is after completing engage, things that they actually wanted to add in still. So going to the choir, one person wanted to start painting again. And so in contrast to the pre-interviews where people found it really hard to kind of think about what I want to do, it was kind of like looking at that, well, I would like to add these things in. And again, this is even though their pain is there. And what we really thought here is there's this sense of hope, this sense of, or something could be different. So I could have a different life, even though the pain is there. And this other quote there does actually say, this has given me hope that maybe I can get back, start going forward in my life. And I think with that, we saw this sort of changing in attitude of becoming a little bit more, and I'm not saying completely there, this is a beginning of a process, but starting to become a little bit more future focused and thinking about what I can include in my life again and why that might be important too. And for our final theme, we've got becoming unstuck is an ongoing process that requires ongoing support. So as I said, I guess we really see, and this really helped us understand that Engage is a launching pad. It's not an end product. And I think that's really important when we think about pain management programs, is that we're helping people hopefully to do this, to start to become unstuck and to start to approach life differently. But there needs to be ongoing support after the program for this to continue. And that's certainly something us in the pain field feel can be quite tricky sometimes, is how do we keep that trajectory going? People talked about ongoing support either at the pain clinic or externally. So one of the things for some people that Engage did was help them to realize the complexity of the pain experience and all the different things that might be adding, or contributing to what's going on for them in their pain, and looking at for some things that they might need help with externally. So for a couple, it was mental health support. So for things, like trauma, things like that. So it extends beyond our kind of scope of care. For one person, it was for some addictions with shopping that she has, so when things were flared up. So it was just looking at the outside stuff as well. And again, going, actually, this is really impacting me. Maybe I'm not leaving the house and it's not because of my pain. It's because of this other thing. And so I need to get help and support with that. The people who were wanting support back, and everybody did get ongoing support as well, who were wanting to come back to the pain clinic. So the people who did get that ongoing support, a lot of them were looking for actually ways to re-engage socially again. So the life approach, and I think that was quite new for a lot of people, and in a way got people thinking about, well, what else do I want to add into my life? I think Michael got much busier afterwards, seeing all these people. And it was, for some, it was like, I want to re-engage socially. I just don't know where. I don't know how to do that. I don't know where to go. And so getting help with that. So again, rather than, we're not focusing on getting rid of the pain, we're focusing on helping you do more, and helping you kind of align with your values and get more engaged in that. So just importantly, so as I said, it tells this story of where people are going and hopefully where we're going to keep moving to. And I'm going to speak on that just in regards to some of the changes that we've had at the clinic here. But really importantly, with those findings is that not all participants felt that they learned much. There were 2 participants who didn't really feel that like they learned much at all. However, what was interesting is everybody started to re-engage in an activity. So one of those people started driving again, and he hadn't driven for a number of years. And then it was the graded activity plan to get him back into driving that helped with that. And one also noticed actually I'd like to become more social, like I'm really lonely and isolated, and becoming more social is really important. That's what the focus was on there. So again, I think if we just ask, what do you learn? We might get, I didn't learn anything. But when we look at, well, what's different, what behaviours have changed, we can see that there are changes that might be happening for whatever reason. The group process is of real importance here. I think all of our findings are underpinned by this group process. And, we had these focus groups after the engaged session. So they'd have the 2-hour session, and then our research assistant, Alex, would run the focus group afterwards. So it wasn't run by clinicians. And that actually was a really key part of this process as well, that people really valued that extra time that they had to talk to their peers and to process information that they'd gone through during that session or from the week before as well. So it allowed that extra time. And I think there were quite a few people that commented just how important that was as well there. I think that learning off peers is really key because, again, seeing what other people who do actually have an understanding of what's going on for you suggests is really valuable there. So we've made quite a number of changes here at the Metro South engaged program. So previously it was a 5-week program, and now it's a 6-week program. So 6 weeks of in-person, 2 hours a week. And that's really just allowed more time. So the content isn't significantly different. I think if anything, it's just become more simplified to make sure that we allow more time for exploration of the really key important things and we don't overload people. But that 6 weeks allows for extra time so that we can follow more whatever's happening with the group. And whatever they're wanting to discuss around certain topics as well. We have changed, so quite a few people commented they didn't really feel like they were prepared for the program particularly well. So we've now implemented a pre-program phone interview and a information sheet that outlines each session and what's happening in each session as well, so people have more understanding of that. We also run a post-group coffee and chat. So that kind of is run by one of our nurses. So again, not by the clinicians, but still by a staff member here. And that's to kind of harness that effect of the focus group so that people are having that opportunity, if they want to go through any of the concepts, to have a chat about what's going on in a bit more detail too. We've also got recognising that need for ongoing support. We've got new groups that we're doing. So if you do engage, we've then got a psychological strategies group that follows that. I think that's a 4-week group. We've got a yoga group and a Tai Chi group. And it's really interesting actually seeing people that have gone through engage and then come into that. And we're reiterating, going through those concepts we've learned in engage, but we're doing it with a movement focus. So that's been really nice as well for people that are taking that up. We have a community connection. I think we run one community connection event, which Lizzie can talk on, which sounds like it was really, really beneficial, and hopefully we'll be running a couple more of those. So that's about, taking what you learn and actually taking it out there into the community. Because when you go out to Southbank, whatever, you need to manage getting on the train, getting on the bus, being there. How do you negotiate, if you need to sit down and all those sorts of things. So kind of that doing it with people and helping them live that experience and giving them that confidence that they can do that as well there. And just, I think there's been a few more changes, but it's, I can't recall them at the moment, but we're also just in the process. So at the moment, the story of what people are gaining, I guess, or learning from engage, we're putting it into a short video. We're hoping to put that into sort of a short 2-minute patient resource, because I do think coming into a pain management program, people aren't really sure what to expect, aren't really sure what we're going to do. And so having a patient resource that can explain that journey as well, we're hoping that will be a real benefit to our cohort as well. So that's it from me. I'm gonna, I do thank Hopkins and this Hugh for the funding here, because it really, we wouldn't have had any of this insight or made these changes without that too. I'm going to hand over to Lizzie, and she's going to talk. So Lizzie was a participant in our Engage research project. We had a co-design. She also attended the co-design as well. And she's going to talk on her experiences of Engage and being part of the project as well.
Thanks, Kelly. After listening to Kelly and Michael, what I'm going to talk about will really reflect those findings, I believe. I've lived with chronic pain since about 2012, and I use the word lived very loosely there. It wasn't really till about a year or two ago that I really started to feel like life changed for me, and Engage was a huge part of that. For many reasons, and some of which I'll talk about today, that Kelly has covered. But I guess from a personal experience, how I was able to absorb the information and use it in my world. Firstly, the education was fabulous. It was very digestible. It was, taught on a level where you could take it home and use it. Bring it into your life and practice it, which I think was really helpful for me, because I've now since seen that sometimes using the things that you're taught in a group is where the evidence begins. And so you start to learn, oh, this really works, and this can really change what's happening in my world of pain. As Kelly and Michael have pointed out, pain does change the world in a massive way. It really changes your social world, your psychological world, and that's just to name a few things, really. But the education taught me about my mind and my body and the role that it plays within pain. And because I was able to understand, and for me as a person, understanding is really helpful, makes me be able to put changes in that makes sense. That was a major part of the group for me, the education, how it was able to move through my world in a way that it became practiced. I have to say that I did come to the Engage group with a really open mind. I had come to a stage in my pain journey where I was aware there wasn't going to be a cure, that it was going to be about management, and that's really what Engage gave me, a true platform to manage pain, but not only manage it, but keep moving through it, or start moving through it, actually, because I was stuck, as Michael and Kelly have pointed out. I was very stuck. My life was bed to lounge and lounge to bed. Now, being in a room full of people that were experiencing, if not the same things, very similar, was imperative in my journey, because I felt really abnormal through my pain. I felt like I didn't belong in the world. I'd withdrawn quite a lot. And so even now, when I go out in the world, I can't believe people are out doing things, because it was not my experience anymore. So being in a group, in a room where you felt very validated and nurtured in your pain too, really opened up some things for me, because I felt like I had a belonging, like my pain wasn't just me, my experiences weren't abnormal or wrong, they were human. And I was with other humans that were experiencing much the same, if not, worse or longer, or, and it was, you got to see that pain doesn't discriminate, it will go anywhere. And, that also is eye-opening for me. The other part of Engage was that we were given a lot of knowledge in our appointments with the pain clinic. But the Engage group brought them back into light and gave you like reminders of how to use therapies, or, you know, something as simple as a heat pack or your pain meds at the right time, or, you know, just the rest or the planning that is required to live and manage your pain. So all of that together in the Engage group gave me a huge amount of freedom from being in pain, but still having it, but moving through it, if that makes sense. My pain hasn't changed, to be honest, but what has changed is I move every day. And the importance of that was brought to my mind through the Engage group and through other people who experience it too. That has been life-changing. Just if I only had to point one thing out, it would be that I move every day and the importance of doing that. Also about moving in small ways to start with. I couldn't walk at all. I would barely be able to stand very long. So, you know, the brain wants to think that you can do everything that you used to be able to do, but it's just not true. And it's okay for it not to be true. And I guess Engage gave me that knowledge too. But it taught me that little bits here and there, or every day now, teach the body and the brain new pathways to come out of that feeling of the body's very smart way of saying, let's stay safe. Those small adaptations to move back into the world and back into movement became what now is, I can call, living for the first time in a very long time. And I do say that Engage was a pinnacle point for me in that. I was also able to be involved in the uni study. So after each group, I was able to talk about what I had experienced in the group, which was for me very helpful, because very quickly after the information was given, I was able to digest it, bounce it back and forth with other people. And I think that, you know, also added to my experience in Engage. But importantly, I've been able to apply my knowledge from Engage, practice the skills to manage my own expectations around myself and movement. And then we had the Goma experience, which was absolutely fabulous, to be honest, because it took everything that we'd learned and showed us how to put it into practice. In fact, we did it. We put it into practice. So for me, that meant for a little while getting on a train and only going one station, because that's all my body could take. But eventually I got the train to South Brisbane and met the team there and other people who experience chronic pain, and had an absolutely fabulous time. But it was embraced. I felt safe with the people I was with. I felt good that the other people knew that we might have to sit and rest and that kind of thing. So inclusion that came from Engage, as I said, was really imperative for me. The co-design thing for me was really awesome too, because it meant I got a sense of purpose through my pain, which is something I think people with pain, myself included, lack. We lose our sense of purpose. So being part of co-design really gave me the chance to voice, not only for myself, but for others who endure this, you know, to have a say in how things look for the programs and things that are going to help people. And as I said, gave me a great sense of purpose, as today has, in fact. So I've had many great things come from Engage. Not only did I meet a beautiful team at the pain clinic, because I can't be thankful enough for that, but my experience through Engage, co-design and the uni study has been imperative to my, what I would only call slow recovery, but a happy one. So thank you for your time and attention, and I hope what I've been able to say today gives insight into how imperative these groups are and how much help they can give. And I'll hand it back to you, Nick.
Thank you so much, Lizzie. I mean, from our point of view, it's, you know, your experience is what it's all about for us. It's about, you know, helping people to learn to live their lives again on their own terms, regain some enjoyment in life, and I guess learn to move through pain. And I think as pain clinicians, it's quite challenging for us sometimes what we're wanting to do with people, because everybody's different and everybody's pain experience is different, but then there are so many similarities as well, and navigating those differences and similarities can be very, very tricky. So it's great when we have wins, and it's great when people feel like that they're able to become unstuck and continue with living life and enjoying life, despite experiencing chronic pain. So yeah, thank you so much. So I'm just going to take this off blur so you can see the rest of us in the clinic room here. I think one of the observations I've had about the pain program and maybe the way it's evolved, is that we need to have knowledge about pain science, but the real learnings that people are bringing out of it are real human learnings, and they're not explicit learnings. They're not like I can say I learned exactly this fact or something like that. They're like implicit learnings about how I'm going to actually live my life. Do you think that's true, Kelly?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like this thing where, you know, we've asked people what they learned from the pain program, and they're like, well, you know, I can't list bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, but I know that something's shifted.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the fact that people start doing something more or doing something differently shows, well, something has changed. So whilst it might not be, you know, something like you said that you can list off, there's something inside that has shifted. I think through that as well, you then learn, like you were saying, Lizzie, that this is okay. That it's okay for me to start moving, and it's okay that it's in a small amount and it's slow. That's fine. And from that, you then start to build on that. And it's a slow, and I think also just accepting it is a slow and gradual process. And you were talking, Lizzie, about expectation setting as well. I think even that learning to accept that, yes, maybe I used to, you know, walk for a kilometre and I'm just going to start with 20 metres, and that's okay. So I even think those learnings about it's okay to work with who I am now. It's okay that I'm not where I used to be are really important as well.
A couple of comments that have come through. It seems to be more than learning, it's practicing and experimenting with support. And it sounds like people leave having integrated and now embodying a new way of living. And I think we get that as pain clinicians who've seen the people who succeed, whatever succeed means, but we know it when we see it. But this is not what people come to our clinic wanting. People come to our clinic wanting us to do something to them so that we can fix their pain. Would you be able to comment a little bit on that, Lizzie? Like that kind of, because I'm sure you've probably had that journey from like, I need to fix my pain, I need to fix my pain, what's wrong with me, all that sort of stuff. Could you comment a little bit on that journey for yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I remember coming to the pain clinic and, well, I remember waiting to be seen, at the pain clinic and thinking, this is it. This is it. Life is going to, I'm going to get pain free. There's going to be a miracle. And so I guess when I got there, I was still in that frame of mind. And it did take me a little while and talking to everybody and starting to listen a little bit differently to understand that that's not what was going to happen. And I can't really tell you why that changes in the brain. Maybe it's just that you go, well, I'm going to hang on to what they're going to give me, and you start rolling with that. And eventually you start to go, okay, I can't stop it, but I'm going to do everything I can to listen to these people that are giving it to me in such a way that I can start adding it to my world and see what happens. Because it's, like I said, it's evidential. So as I started to apply it, I started to see, oh my goodness, this works. And yes, it doesn't take it away. So it's an acceptance. It really is an acceptance that comes over you. And an understanding of what the body is doing helped me to do that. So, knowing the body's just trying to keep you safe, and then hearing and engage, you are safe. I mean, even to this day, if I go for a walk and I feel some pain, I will say to myself, you are safe. So it's really about applying the things. The brain has to open up, obviously, and I was fortunate enough that happened to me at that time. So I think saying that it's evidential. You've really got to start doing it and see that this is it. This is what happens if you just do a little bit, and then it proves to the mind we're safe. We can do another little drop. Let's do another little drop.
We can, I think, we, as pain clinicians, we've seen people who are very good at understanding the theory behind pain. They're very good at talking the talk, and they can, but sometimes people will understand everything intellectually, but they won't be able to embody those changes. So it is a very lived experience of change, and I think that's come through in the chat as well. There's another question here, I think, for you guys, Michael and Kelly. As clinicians running this project, what finding had the biggest impact on you? What did you, was there anything in there that...
I think probably for me, it's the that group effect. We've sort of been running groups for a long time, but we've really found it hard to get bums on seats. So getting people to attend has been a real challenge for us. We've tried many different iterations of these programs, and sometimes we get groups of 3 people, and we sort of know that we want more to have that really build in that group dynamic. So I think just the fairly consistent messaging that was advantageous, and then just how can we attack this now from a different angle to try to sell the message a bit more around. We've sort of identified the research. So the video that Kel talked about, I think, sort of front-ending things a bit better to sort of try to get people to go, hey, actually, this actually changed your life. This can actually be a really good thing. Let's have a crack. Let's be open to it, as Lucy said.
I think for me, the group was paramount. I guess, going through all the pre-interviews, I think the level of what we called stuckness, just how stuck people were, to not even to be able to think about something to do next week. I think that it really reframed as a clinician where we have to start with people. And I think that's what we saw across the board with all of us, is starting really small, and we've always known that, but I think now we had this new level of insight into just how hard this is. And so if we're wanting to promote safety and we're wanting to promote this free learning, we actually have to start really, really small, really, really gradually, and keep it going after the program as well.
Could I just add to that? What an important part of it for me was meeting with Michael, because he reminded me what I enjoyed. Because through not doing anything anymore and withdrawing from life, you forget your identity, you forget the things you loved, or you imagine you could never do them again. So sitting with Michael over many sessions really opened up things for me. Not only things I used to do, but things maybe I could do now that was different because of the pain. But that was a really essential point, I think.
So you were regaining a sense of identity and autonomy as well, because I think that's one of the things with pain where you feel like you have no control over your life. There's nothing that is of value to you that you can do. What is the point? And people in chronic pain often feel that life is not worth living. So they're like, I'm not doing anything meaningful. Like, my existence is painful. Why am I even here? So there are thoughts around that go on quite a lot for various people. So people are coming from very, very low, dark places to the pain clinic, and sometimes, as you say, Kel, I think it's easy to forget how low and dark that place can be. It's and we've just we've talked to people who say they only have this tiny little window of attention that is everything else is taken up by pain. Can't possibly think of anything else. All I'm doing is lying on the floor, and I can't. So the messages that people need to get at that stage need to be very simple, very easy to understand, but also resonate with them as well. So there's another question here. Co-regulation can help people feel safer. I imagine the group experience and validation was a good platform for the program to land for participants. I think that feeling of safety, that is what pain is a protective output of the body. So the more we can help people feel safe, the better they'll be able to deal with their pain. Absolutely. And we try and create that environment in the clinic as much as possible. We are running out of time. So I would like to say a big thank you to everybody who's tuned in today, actually, because pain is obviously very important to me, but pain is a huge issue for Australia. It costs the economy about $100 billion a year, which is way more than AUKUS. So just think of all the submarines we could buy if we solved chronic pain. Maybe not where we should spend the money, but anyway. And I really like to put out a big thank you to Lizzie for tuning in from her home as well. And I'd like to say that we've also got another Hopkins Hour coming up on the 16th of September. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And we'll see you there, I guess. And I'll let the guys in charge in the back end close the meeting down when they're ready. Thanks everyone once again.